Hey. Ask me anything. Good day. Good day to you too. What time is it over there? It's 8 p.m. for me. Just editing some videos over here. Slowly editing. Kind of want to get distracted a little. 12-hour difference. Where would you be? Where would that put you? That would put you in Wow, it's early morning for you. Are you going to work? Going to school? Why are you up so early? 12-hour difference. That would probably put you in like the States, right? Somewhere like eastern United States, I'm guessing, like in that time zone. Get going on some sites. What do you mean? Like websites? Close. Canada. Like Eastern Canada. How close am I? There we go. Hey, I'm actually Canadian too. I'm just working overseas. I'm actually from Vancouver. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why I got recommended, because we're both Canadian. There we go. Business, it's being started, let's put it that way. I have a job, I'm working, trying to start something on the side. I think going live, making videos, it's just documenting that process, you know what I mean? What about you? What do you do? You do content? What kind of content do you do? Sales. I've always wondered about sales. Um, is it not fulfilling to you because of what you're selling, or is it more so the product, or like the process? I mean, like what to you, what makes sales unfulfilling? Because to me, it's like if you're selling something that has value, that has impact, that sounds like a really, really good job. Trying to work with Okay, you're trying to work with AI and produce vids for affiliate products and services. Well, did you figure out your niche yet? Like that's kind of the first step, right? Figuring out the kind of value you want to bring to the marketplace. Like for me, I'm a teacher, and so I've always had this inclination to want to teach things that I can't teach in school, and so I guess that's why I'm creating content. Depends on what scratches your itch, man. Gaming and local business lead gen. Those are like two very different verticals, which is okay, by the way. That's what makes it unique, right? Do you have skill in like local business lead gen? Like are you good at it? No way your way around a website. So you mean you know how to build websites? Is that what you mean? Building websites? It I guess it depends on the niche, right? I mean, so much attention is just on social media that oftentimes I don't know if a website's actually necessary for a lot of businesses. But I guess it depends on the business you're catering to. And I guess it's also not just about building the website, it's about getting attention on the website. So like running Google ads, for example, to get attention on the website, or even just setting up a landing page, right? Because websites are so informational. Like websites of the past are so informational, and you'll notice that a lot of the time, the websites of today are just landing pages to get people to download things or make a quick purchase, stuff like that. Did you have something in mind? Did you have a niche? I mean, like if you're looking at like local businesses, I can imagine like restaurants, for example, could have a website, right? Like with a number, they can order delivery, um, menus, right? All that. But it really depends on the business. Used vehicle tires. Okay. So like lead gen as in well then well then it depends on how you're getting the leads, right? Like are you using paid ads? Are you using social media? Are you trying to do SEO? And what are you lead genning for? Like what kind of like are you bringing in hot leads? Just people that are interested? And like how far down the vertical are you thinking? Like are you just gathering contact information of people that click on the website, or are you helping set calls? Like are you helping the businesses book appointments? How's it been going? Like how much have you done? That's fantastic, man. Good on you for getting that started. I mean, I think like now it's the perfect time to start something on the side, you know what I mean? I mean, I guess the perfect time was in the past, but obviously we can't go back to the past, so now is literally the best time to start something on the side, especially in this economy, you know what I mean? Like in Canada, like I'm sure America as well, but like in Canada, when I went back to Canada last year, just things are just so much more expensive, especially in Vancouver. Housing is just not affordable, and I just feel like so many things are going in a not so good direction, right? Like the whole social climate. Um, don't want to get too political about it. Feel free to chat. Like if you're in here, type a message. Let's chat. I'm just sitting here trying to edit a video, but obviously I'm a little distracted, and I'm okay with that. And hey, like if you have work you need to do, let's just get to work. Yeah, Canada is Canada, I guess. Like things used to be so much better like 15 years ago. I guess more affordable at least. That's the perspective that I'm going off of. Like growing up in Canada, it used to be this promised land for immigrants, but it's a lot do well there today than when my parents immigrated there 15 years ago. Which I guess is why I'm abroad. Well, we're 12 hours apart, right? So I'll let you guess. Where could I possibly be? Language education. I guess I don't teach English, but I do teach in English. Um, I actually teach business and economics. Yeah, there's a big hint over there, right? Yeah, no kidding. What's up with Bitcoin? I literally think, see, like I ascribe myself to kind of the value investing philosophy of Warren Buffett, and man, like, cause you know Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, rest in peace, don't think Bitcoin is an asset because it's not something like a business, like it doesn't pay money. But just seeing it go up, I guess there is this like FOMO, and I think like that's why it's been going up so much. It's because so many people have seen it gone up, and so there's FOMO involved, and so they go buy, and its initial bump in price is because it's like Bitcoin ETFs are now a thing, right? So I think there's demand there, but at this point, like anything that surges that much in such a short amount of time is like there's something going on with that, right? So I don't think it's something that I fully understand, to be honest. Like not fully understand in that like I don't fully understand cryptocurrency. It's that I don't fully understand, like I know what Bitcoin is, but like what are the use cases? I feel like there are a lot of use cases for blockchain technology and non-fungible tokens, but I don't know the specific use case of a Bitcoin right now, aside from illegal things. Share structure? Tell me more. What do you mean share structure? What do you mean by share structure? I guess I guess to me there are just like other more investable things in Bitcoin that I understand better. And I guess that's where I have my money today. And it's a lot simpler than, like it's not complicated at all. It's literally just an index fund in real estate. I'd rather get rich slow. In terms of investing, I'd rather get rich slow because in my experience, like I've I've dabbled in the world of individual stock trading. Um, and like yes, you make money very quickly when you're trading individual stocks, but you also lose money very quickly, right? Like if you don't really know what you're doing. And and in order for you to actually know what you're doing, you have to be able to risk, like you need to be able to take on the risk of losing, right? Like you need to have money set aside that you can just comfortably lose, because that's kind of what you need in order to get good at stock trading. And most of us don't have that cash just sitting there, you know what I mean? Like most of us actually like are trying our best to just like save money, and we're saving for like a future purchase, like a home, or like a car, or like marriage, kids, right? Like those are a lot more important goals. And so I don't feel like I should risk what I do have to to try to get something I don't really need, right? Like I'm doing fine right now financially. I don't need to 10x my money on Bitcoin, right? Like, yeah, sure. Like, if I do 10x my money in Bitcoin, like, my living standards could go up. I could spend more money. But, like, would it make me that much more happier? Like, right? Like, think about the delta, right? Like, think about the delta, like the change. Think like chemistry class. Like, if you have 100 grand and you put it in Bitcoin and it 10x's, is that delta of happiness more or less than you losing that 100 grand and you going back to zero, right? And for me, I much rather take like 7% a year in the stock market, and I don't have to think about it. I don't have to like worry about it, right? Like I have this like philosophy of, and it comes from experience of like, if I've bought some kind of investment and I need to wake up every day in the morning, and the first thing I do is I like check the price of that investment. Like, did it go up? Did it go down? And it's like when it goes up, I'm like, yes, right? But if it goes down, I'm like, crap, like I did something wrong. Like I'm worried. I'm like reading all this news. I'm trying to find news to like support my own kind of bias thinking, right? Like I ignore all the bad news. I just like find solace and comfort in the good news, right? So like that's totally irrational, right? And so if I find like that's the behavior I'm engaging in when I make an investment, that says one thing, right? And that thing is that I don't know enough about the investment. In other words, I'm risking money that I can't afford to lose to gain something that might not even happen, right? So I guess that's, isn't non-worry subjective to the information you have though? Madoff investors felt good via the info, yet it was not real. Oh yeah, 100%, right? And so like a lot of the time, like investing is subjective, right? Like you would only invest in something if you think it's gonna go up, right? Like if you think it's gonna go up. And when investing is subjective, and when most people are subjective, when most people's subjectivity is wrong, right? It's so much more important to just ignore my own feelings, because my feelings are subjective, right? So like I factor in the idea that I'm probably wrong, and if I am probably wrong, if I cannot trust my own perceptions of what the stock is going to do, and I can't, because I can't be Warren Buffett and call up the CEO and be like, hey Tim Cook, where do you think Apple's going to go in the next 5 years, right? Like those guys they can do that, right? Can I be like Warren Buffett and be like, when I buy a company, or like Alex Hormozy, like if you know his content, like when he invests in a company, he does private equity, he can actually like 10x the company, right? Like he can go in, make hiring, firing decisions, build systems to actually add value to the business. I can't do any of that, right? And so the only thing I can do is trust on like objectively what happens, like what has happened to people that have made this decision in the past over the last 100 years. And over the last 100 years, it's been simple, right? Like if we buy a cross section of American businesses over the last 100 years, people, the longer they've put money in that stock market without selling, the lower the chances of them actually having lost money, right? Like so that's like the information that I'm working with right now, right? And like real estate as well. Oh yeah, oh yeah, 100%, right? Like Warren Buffett made some big bets, big decisions, and he made his fair share of mistakes, right? Like Berkshire Hathaway used to be, like Berkshire Hathaway was a textiles business that went out of business, right? Like if you look at like Berkshire Hathaway is, yes, it's this holding company that invests in a ton of businesses, right? Like we know like Berkshire Hathaway as it is today, right? But it used to be this textiles business that went out of business, and that was his bad decision, right? The thing with like Warren Buffett is he I think he doesn't really bet the farm, right? And he does it for fun, right? Like when like when I think about Warren Buffett, I think about a guy that has been in business for most of his life, still drives the same car, still lives in the same house. And so he's in business because that's his thing, right? Whereas if we're trying to make investment, like I know for sure, I don't know about you, but like I know for sure that stocks is not like a passion of mine, that if I did not have to make money, I would just trade stocks all day. No, like I want to make money in stocks. And I think that mindset alone changes how I think about stocks as an investment, how I make decisions, right? It like inevitably there are feelings attached when we lose money and when we make money. And feelings are what make us irrational. You know, and like investing and being irrational are just don't go well together, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Yeah. So that's like what Charlie Munger talked about as well, right? Like localizing most of his investments. Um, and like Charlie Munger has like a few stocks in his portfolio, right? Like Costco or something like that. Right, right. But like those guys, like why am I even like why are we even comparing ourselves with those guys though? Right? Like we don't have, at least I don't have the audacity of going down the New York Stock Exchange from A to Z and looking at the financial statements and the notes to the financial statements of every single company, reading all the annual reports. Right? Like if I had the audacity to do that, then maybe I would go pick individual stocks, but I don't have the conscientiousness to look at every single company on the New York Stock Exchange. Like that's not fun to me, right? And so like I know in my own mind, like I know myself. I'm so self-aware that I know if I buy stocks, it's going to be based off of incomplete information. And yes, we live in a world where there's always going to be information asymmetry. But if I know for me that when I buy individual stocks that I don't do enough work, then why should I? Why? Like, why am I even getting into stocks? Right? Like, I know I'm doing a bad job in that sense. Right? Like, like, like for example, like, do you own like an individual stock, right? And like, do you? Yeah, passion is necessary for larger returns. Man, I have like a whole spiel on passion too. So I've been alive for like over 30 years. I don't even know. Like some people are lucky they find their passion, but like most of most of the world aren't, they're not passionate about stuff. They just want to like make a living, you know? Yeah, so like if you own stocks, like individual companies, if you own individual companies, like do you know how much debt the company is in? Do you know the year over year free cash flow of the businesses? Do you know the competitive moat of the businesses? Do you know the main competitors, right? So so it's not like I don't understand those concepts. I do. Like I teach business and economics for a living. So I have a finance degree, I have an accounting degree, right? That's what I went to university for. But I know myself so well, like I just don't want to do the work. And so I'm not going to just make decisions based off of incomplete information when I don't want to do the work. See, like that's another thing. Do you mean like quarterly reports? Because like Warren Buffett famously said that he'd be like if you buy a stock and the stock market closes for like the whole year, okay with that. Like Warren Buffett famously said that that's the kind of investment that you should be looking for, right? So he's not a believer in like following quarterly reports and looking at short-term price fluctuations. Like he's not a he's not a technical investor, if that's what you mean, right? But some people are. And like that's the thing with this world is like there's just no like golden equation, right? There's no like if I put together XYZ, I'm gonna be a millionaire. There's so many paths to it, right? Like if there was only one path, somebody would have already shared it on the internet and we would all be millionaires. But like there isn't. And so everyone's trying to like figure out their own path that is contextual to their own life, right? Like some people you probably like you've been in sales, right? Like some people are like millionaires from being in sales. Other people hate the job, right? So it's like we're on this journey of just trying to find our way of making things work, and that's okay. I feel like, right? That's why I gave you so much props, right? Like when you're trying to start your own side thing, because you know this main thing is temporary, and you're trying to build something different, and like that's like deserving of applause in my mind. I don't know. Sorry for going on this rant, but man, I love talking about finance and business and economics. Not so much on the business side because I'm still trying to build it, but like definitely on like the investing and finance and the economics of it all. Yeah, yeah, and like I think a lot of the time there's a pattern with, and Alex Hormozy talks about this. He did talk about this a little in some of his videos, about how like in order to become wealthy, we need to take outsized risks at the beginning, right? Like at the beginning, we need to take outsized risks, right? Like limited downside, but really big upside, right? And it's like after we're wealthy when we make decisions that prevent us from losing money, right? Like diversification, um, not focused investing, right? Yeah, compounding time in the market, that's huge. And 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 the benefit of not having to worry about your investments every day is that you can direct your attention to the number one ROI generator, which is you, right? Like imagine if you directed 100% of your attention on yourself, which is what you're doing right now by building something on the side, and you don't have to think about like did I buy the right stock? You're not checking prices every day. Spend all that time, energy and attention on just getting maximum ROI on you, essentially the person. And like your skills compound as well, like your skills stack as well, and you become more valuable as well, right? Yeah, exactly. Editing yeah, compounding how to use tools. And Man, and editing to me is, I wouldn't say I like editing. It's just something I have to do, right? And I've gotten exponentially faster at it. Yeah, see, that's the thing, right? Like, some people are like really good at editing video, that's their thing. Other people are more focused on the message of the video, how to tell a good story, how to hold attention even if there are no cuts, right? And so like different creators focus on different things. Like creators like Vinzar, crazy editor, so good, right? But then there've been a bunch of YouTube channels popping up lately where it's just literally a video of a guy talking at the camera, right? And so that tells me there's a market for different things, and we just ultimately need to find a path that is good for ourselves, I think. Yeah, like I used to think, I mean, okay, like I still think there is like an ideal video template that is optimized for growth, right? Like there are so many nuances, right? Like like different types of hooks, establishing social proof in the beginning, opening psychological loops in like the first 30 seconds, telling a story without giving anything away, creating conflict in the story, opening another loop before you close the first one, right? Like there's a lot of stuff like that, right? That I think are retention hacks. But at the same time, I think the difference between implementing those things and not implementing those things is the speed at which we grow. I think I think if we're okay with growing slower, and which I'm okay with, then it's about the message that you're trying to share, right? Like the voice that you're trying to create, the brand that you're trying to build. Like that's my current focus because that's what I'm trying to still figure out, right? And I know that is in the long run, that is Pareto optimality, right? That's the 20% that's going to generate the 80%. Like figuring out who I want to help, what my message is, how I am on camera, the stories I'm telling, right? Because the editing stuff I can always outsource in the future. You know, it's just my way of thinking. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the times, and I'm sure you've like had this experience, right? Because you're trying to start your own thing on the side. Like, what kind of local businesses should I cater to, right? What kind of website should I build? What should the theme be, right? And then like if you're using WordPress or something, what what kind of plugins do I install? Right? Like who's the best host? Right? Like there's so many like minute details and questions that we can focus on answering that kind of take us away from the bigger picture. And so I think it's a lot more important. It's like, and those are important things, don't get me wrong, but like sometimes it's like we just need to figure out the bigger picture first. You know what I mean? And there we go. Exactly. Right? Like you end up kind of learning through the process of doing. You learn to figure out what's important and what's not important. And you're like, screw the unimportant stuff. Let's just focus on what's important. Right? And the most important part of creating content is the actual content. It's not it's not the best cut, right? Like it's not the ideal length of the video. It's the content. Yeah. There you go. Right? And I love that we're having this conversation right now. And if you just hopped in to this live and you're just kind of silently watching, just type a message in the chat. Let's start a conversation. Like, what are you dealing with? Like, where are you at? Right? Let's chat. So like, Nomad, how is business? Like, tell me about a win. What's the last thing you made progress on? And mysterious second person that is watching this stream, how are you doing? Hi. I don't know who you are, but hi. Literally just working. That's fantastic. See, that's a win, right? I clap for that, right? Like it's the legwork, right? Like because you probably have a background. You have a background in sales, so it's like it's getting yourself out there and being like, I've got this value I can offer you. Are you interested? There we go, right? Like are you a person of faith or something? Right? Are there is that the avatar that you want to help? Is what I'm trying to ask. Right? Have you focused in on your customer avatar yet? Or are you at a point where it's just like business come, I take anybody. Right? See, making money online is this like far away dream until it actually happens, right? Like there we go, right? Like that's like you're making strides, right? And like that's all it takes. It's like yet like you're not a basketball player, you don't have exceedingly long legs, so you're a normal person, right? Like most of us, we just take one step forward at a time, right? And the cool thing is like you define the step, right? Like you define what moving forward means. And so I mean, Gary Vee famously said that when he first started working out, I mean, he was fat, right? Like it was this years ago, right? When he first started working out, his first exercise was 8 push-ups. Exactly, right? Just turn on the camera and press record. I think, and I'm having such a good time talking to you too. I never thought this would happen, honestly, right? Who would have thought? I, I haven't even edited this video that I said I would edit. Like I'm having such a good time right now. I honestly thought, like honest to God, I honestly thought I would press record just for fun, and then like nobody would come and I would get to like edit this video, right? But now we're having a meaningful conversation. At least it's meaningful to me, right? Sometimes all it takes is just asking that girl out, right? Sometimes all it takes is going for a walk, right? Deciding to not buy that bag of snacks. It's like it's little things like that that build up over time that eventually create a person that is totally different from who you were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? And if like and truly if someone came up to you and asked 10 years later, would you're gonna be a millionaire, would you be willing to if the condition was one very little change at a time over a long period of time? And like logically, most people would say yes to that. Yeah, simple beginning, like exactly, simple beginnings, right? Most people would say yes to that. Million in 10 years, right? One step at a time over a long period. Like it logically makes sense. Why don't we do it? Right? That's the real barrier. It's like when I first started, like when I first moved abroad and I wanted to like become a teacher. I I went abroad like to become a teacher not because I wanted to teach, which I mean if you don't want to teach, don't be a teacher, right? Like to all aspiring teachers out there. But I wanted to build like this business on the side while I was abroad, right? And it was just shiny object syndrome from one failure to the next. But the only thing that I kept doing was teaching, right? And then eight years later, I've like tripled my income doing as a teacher, right? And I it finally clicked that I'm like, hey, if I just pick a thing and I do it for a long time, that's all that matters. 45 days later, it becomes the chore. Most of the time within 3 weeks. Yeah, so I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I know exactly the feeling of like I set a goal, right? New Year's resolution time, right? Come on, baby, I got this. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna walk 10,000 steps a day, and it doesn't even take 3 days before I'm like, I want to go home, right? I'm just sit there and watch TV, right? That's the feeling. But like, you know how I fixed that was I lowered expectations of myself, right? Like, I just said to myself, hey, Leon, 10,000 steps is too ambitious. How about we start with 10, right? Like 100 if 10 is too, right? Like something that does not even matter, like that you won't like won't change you in the next 10 days, but it actually will because it changes the psychology of like you actually started something, right? And so that's what I learned, at least, like lower expect. So that's why it's like for my videos, like I'm not trying to edit like crazy Vinsar, right? I'm just cutting out the mistakes. Like what is the minimum viable action that I'm willing to take that will move me towards my goals? Do that, right? Hey, if you're watching right now, subscribe to the channel. We're having such a good conversation. That's what being live is about, I think. It's like the ability to just talk and chat and just connect with somebody that you don't really know, but share in the human experience. Took 2 days to complete a project that is only 2 hours, and 3 years when I knew I started in 2021. I also know that feeling. I posted my first YouTube video in 2018, and I was in the finance niche, and I had always wanted to just increase my impact by just sharing things that I find valuable online. And finance was what personal finance was what I found valuable at that time. But I quit. And I quit because I saw a guy kind of start around the same time as me, and he was taking off. Right. And you probably like, if you're into like personal finance YouTube, you probably know this guy, Andre Jake. He does like magic and finance. Like what's crazy is I started at the same time as some of the biggest finance YouTubers today, right? Like I started around then, like Graham Stephan, Jake, Erica Kohlberg, right? Like those really big finance YouTubers. I started at the same time as them. The only difference was they kept going and I didn't, and I just didn't have the mentality and psychology and discipline to keep going at that time. Like my identity was not the identity of someone that would succeed. And it took a lot of work before I right? It took a lot of work before I actually even started this channel. And now I'm at a point where I like lowered expectations. Right? Like I don't care if I don't get a million views. I want to define my success based on the input that I put in, right? And I want my future, not my future. I want my kids, right? I want my kids to be able to look at their dad's life and be like, that's how dad tried to do it, right? Like imagine that. Like imagine you're creating something for your future children, right? Like if you plan to have children, like, and if your children watched it and they learned something from it, then isn't that in itself worth the work, right? Like that's the circuit that is going on in my brain right now. It's not likes and followers. Like all that stuff is nice, but it's the impact on the people that I care about in my life, right? Yeah, 2021 start, dude, or dudette. I don't know. So many people have started things in 2021 and are now like big in that space. And the crazy thing is like so many people are starting things today and will be big in 5 years if they keep going. And the crazier thing is so many people are starting things today and they could have been big if they kept going. That's just the reality, right? Like it's low barrier to entry, but time is the biggest barrier to success. Yeah, so like exit strategy. I don't have one. I Man, I think like as an economics teacher, I have to teach a concept called game theory, right? Like prisoner's dilemma game theory. And there's this concept within game theory called the finite game, like a game with defined rules, clear winners and losers that ends. And there's another game that we're playing called the infinite game with no clear winners or losers, and the point of the game is to just keep playing. And so there are so many games that are actually infinite games in our life and our decisions that we make with our lives, but but we ascribe an achievement to that game that we're playing and we make it a finite game. And that's the reason we lose, because we're playing the wrong game. And let me give you an example. Like if you want to be healthy, right? Like let's say you want to build like a six pack, or you want to build a business, right? Like the point of like being healthy is to stay healthy, right? Like it's not like you're gonna train your hardest and then you get the six pack and then you're like, I can finally eat that pizza, right? I've been waiting for McDonald's to be a part of my diet every single day, right? And now that I have this six pack, I can finally do it. No, right? Like you maintain it, right? Like the point of being healthy is to stay healthy, right? And that's the same story behind like people that build $1 million businesses. They exit the business, they have this huge exit, and they've made enough money to retire themselves for the rest of their lives, right? And then they do nothing, right? They become a consumer of the world instead of a creator in the world, and they become depressed, right? They go to the Maldives and they party for like a year and they come back with depression, right? When during the building phase, all they are thinking about is like, I want to be at the parties after I become a billionaire or a multimillionaire or whatever, right? And then they come back. Some of them have very unfortunate outcomes as a result of their depression and sadness, but other like entrepreneurs, they come back and they build something even bigger, right? They're like, yeah, I exited this business, the party life isn't for me, let's build something bigger. In fact, if you look up the story of the guy that built Spotify, right? Spotify, one of the co-founders, that was his exact story. It's like he exited this like multiple, I forget how many $1 million company when he was like in his late 20s, and then he became super depressed after partying for a year, and then he built Spotify. Right? Imagine doing that. I learned that unless I discover or invent, all I can do is learn, understand, and connect the info to the demand. I mean, I want you to unpack that a little bit more. Like discover or invent as in like actually taking action, or and like in opposition to that, what you were doing instead is you're just learning information. Like are you talking about the difference between consuming information and getting a dopamine rush from like consuming information, like reading a book, watching a video, and thinking you improved, and actually taking action? Like is that the two things you're comparing? Because that's also real, right? Like the amount of people that like feel good after watching the YouTube self-improvement video and then do nothing to change their lives. Yeah, yeah, that's it, right? Like that's why most self-help books and most self-improvement videos actually don't help you. And it it doesn't have that much to do with the person creating the video. Like they're giving good information, but it more so has to do with the mindset of the person watching and reading. It's work to create and seeing something through. Like that's what makes the difference, right? Like at the end of the day, reading a book like makes you feel good up here, and that's temporary, right? Like you come to a point where like, and I had this problem too, like back in the late 2010s. Well, like yeah, late 2010s. I just like I was over consuming information. I was buying way too many courses, wasting way too much. Like the first 2 years of my working life ended up being volunteering. Like that's how much money I spent buying courses that were not useless per se. Some of them were overpriced, but I was stuck on the treadmill of mental masturbation, and I couldn't get myself to actually do anything, right? And that sucked. That sucked. And like the only way to move forward is to remove all the excuses, right? I got to the point where I learned so much that I knew exactly what I had to do, right? Like I knew if I wanted to grow on YouTube, just make videos, right? Make videos, don't define your success by the metrics, define your success by the input that you put in. Just do the action, do the work that is required. Like that's what's gonna make results, right? So it wasn't until I actually removed all the excuses for myself that I actually started making progress. 100%. Yeah, man. Such a good talk. It's been a good time talking with you, man. Going places. You know what? This is my very first live. Like, I've never done. Like, you are number one, man. This is my. I've never. Never. Like, randomly, I just decided to hit record and go live. This is literally my first live video. And it's like, okay, great. You show up and we chat for an hour. That's fantastic. Yeah. Serendipity at its finest. Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like it's like and a lot of times you didn't know, like you don't know you can do something until you actually do it. Right? And like that might sound obvious, but most people don't actually do the work. Yeah. And this was fun. Yeah. Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you, man. Let's get to work. I don't know if I have like a live schedule yet. I'm still like working out the kinks of like when to go live. Should I have a schedule or like just do it when I feel like it and like leave it all to serendipity? But you'll definitely be seeing me on live if our times match. Thank you, man. Thank you for coming, and thank you for having such a great conversation. Yeah, I appreciate you, man, or woman, stranger. Yeah, yeah. See, that's a good idea. No, thank you, man. Thank you for staying. It's like we're just trying to build each other up, man, or woman, person. Yeah, a lot of times that is. It's just, you know, it's the same feeling I get when I go to work, and I don't know. like you don't find sales as a job fulfilling, so you probably kind of know what I'm talking about. It's, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you know you have to go in for work and you dread going to work. Like you wanna stay in bed like a minute longer because you wanna like delay the action of going to work. But once you're there, you put on the cape, right? And you get the job done. And that was me. It's like it like pressing the button was half the battle. And obviously the other half is just being real and like being able to talk on camera and not knowing if I'd be able to do it, right? And I guess I can, right? That's what this experience has taught me. I knew why, so I wanted you to know we the users do at times can help the why. Until, yeah, thank you, buddy. That's that matters a lot, man. Especially when like live is, especially like vertical live. I don't know how you got here, like through the shorts feed probably, right? Like you're scrolling, and like it's very difficult to stop scrolling. And the fact that you stopped, I'm thankful, right? That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. And like, if it is not like you're just here like passively watching a random guy halfway across the world, right? Like you're actively engaging in a conversation, and I appreciate that. Uh, it's like until we talk to someone, anyone, we sometimes forget that we share so much in common in the human experience. Like we're all trying to find happiness or joy. We're all trying to improve our standard of living and create a life, a better life for those that we care about, love. And we all deal with insecurity, and we all deal with imposter syndrome, and we all deal with fears and anxiety because we're human. But we sometimes forget that, right? Like we wallow in our own loneliness and in our own sorrow, and we think nobody understands us when in reality we're all like experiencing very very similar problems. And maybe not all, but like at least one person in the world shares in your struggles. And I think that that is reassuring because we get to comfort each other in our own afflictions, right? Like we get to use our own battle scars and our own pain to comfort others who are in pain right now. And in a grand sense, we end up learning that or understanding or realizing that maybe there is a point to all of this, right? And like there is. Yeah, lessons need to be learned when we have to go through them. The human experience, the DNA of how things happen to understand and expect better. Expect better. I think like that's a very important keyword. Like expect better. Not expect perfection, not expect $1 million by the time you're 35, 45, or whatever age you've set for yourself. Not expect to be married at which age, right? But just expect a little bit better than today, tomorrow. And expect that you have control over the progress that you're making. No, I don't know if I'm thinking about that, right? Like the idea of ultimate control, I don't actually know. I don't know. Like from yeah, game theory video would be cool. Yeah, that would be a class. Yeah, but it would be cool. Maybe I will make a video on game theory, like the applicable parts of game theory to everyday life. But like the idea of ultimate control, rather than ultimate control, because sometimes I know that there are things outside our circle of influence that happen to us inevitably. I mean, rather than the thinking behind ultimate control, I'd rather think about the idea of ultimate accountability in a sense. Like because like the moment I ascribe what happens to an external factor, I lose my own influence over that thing. And so I try to be as accountable as I can. Because in a sense, accountability anchors me in reality. And in order for me to create a reality that doesn't exist for me right now, right, like a future, I have to understand reality as it exists for me today. And in order for me to understand reality as it exists for me today, I have to be accountable to today's reality. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't know. Like if you're here, did what I said just make sense? Yeah. Yeah. We yeah, I mean it's true in that like a lot of us blame bad things on external circumstances and internalize the reason for why good things happen. That's a form of pride. Yeah. I just think hmm. I mean, there are obviously things that happen that are outside of my control, but I don't want to give up being accountable to what happens because while I may have had no control over what happened, right? Like if something that happens to me, I do have control over how I react to that thing. So like I'm at the very least accountable to my reactions to my circumstances. 100%. Accountability does lead to more control. See, like that's like an other thing that I've got questions around. Like I'm still figuring things out for myself. Like I know that adversity and being resilient in the face of adversity builds character and endurance, right? Like I know that. But what's the right amount of adversity to go through? Right? Because there are challenges that there are situations that you can put yourself in that create super adverse conditions for yourself. Like I could quit my job right now and try to start a business. That that would be a whole lot more adverse than me trying to start something on the side, right? Or I could continue right now and maybe like continue working at my job and not start any businesses. It would still have a level of adversity because I still got to do the job and I have to figure out how to do a good job, and there are challenges every single day, right? At any job, to my knowledge. But what's the right amount? Like do you turn that knob to the extreme and be like burn the boats? Or is there an optimal amount in the middle? Or or should we stay in our comfort zones because our comfort zones are actually our zones of genius, right? I that's a worthwhile question. Hello, the three people that are watching stream, three maybe four people. I think this stream is me. I'm working, right? Like I didn't think anybody would watch this stream, and like I'm actually just working right now. Um, but I had such a good conversation with Nomad that if you're in here and you want to chat, just have a regular conversation about kind of the life that you're trying to build, your struggles, and how it's going. Maybe you're winning. Let's talk. Let's chat. Feel free to just type in the chat. We'll have a conversation. How often do you get to do that? Right? Scrolling on YouTube and you get to have a conversation with someone. Literally just working here. Nothing to see here. Hi. Yeah, man. Till next time. Yeah, let's get to work, man. I'm also working on stuff. Yeah, pleasure meeting you as well. Pleasure talking to you. Hope we'll get to chat again in the future, and hope more people join the conversation. It's been a good time, man. Or person, stranger. Pleasure. Have a good time. Keep building. You're gonna make it. Cheers. A dude of dudes. You sounded so alpha. All to you, man. A for alpha. Cheers. Aw, thanks for the comment, Iconic. You want to chat? I was wondering who else was here. I only see the number, but I don't see any of the names. And so if you want to chat, type it in the chat. Let's chat. We can talk about anything. It's better than scrolling through shorts. All right. Keep that in mind, man. See ya, Nomad. So Iconic, what are you trying to build? You're a student, you're working. I started this stream, I think at 8 p.m. was when Nomad came in to this conversation, and right now it's 9:23. So we literally chatted for like an hour and a half. I don't know how long you were watching as a part of that, but we talked about everything from like building the business to investing to like learning to like anxiety to just lots of stuff. We talked about lots of stuff. 16. I teach kids your age. I'm a teacher. That's my job. All right, there we go. Good to see ya. I don't know if your teachers are as cool as me though. Maybe not. Who knows? How are you liking schools? Are you okay? I gotta ask, cause teaching's my job. Gotta ask. Is going to school something you like, or have you been kind of sold on the idea of, you know, like school creates cogs and machines, which I don't disagree with. So, but like I want your take. Like what's the contemporary teenage take on what school is like? Where do you go to school, by the way? And you don't have to tell me the city. Don't give me any personal information. Like which country you at? Like which part of the globe are you at? Assuming Earth is like we're on Earth. Yeah. Where you at? Where you at, dude? Or dudette or person? I think school. Man, the students I teach are probably so different. Asia! Huh. I also teach in Asia. I was going to say that the students I teach are probably so different from like your schooling context, but now I'm not so sure. The students I teach might be very similar to your context. Man, 16. That's Are you thinking about university? Are you're probably asking questions like, I mean, just thinking back to when I'm 16 and the students that I talk to, probably thinking about stuff like, what should I do with my life? What kind of future should I pursue? Like, what values actually hurt me? What values actually help me? What beliefs, right? What skills should I build? What about my past, like what kind of programming that was a part of my past is helping me, or how much of that is actually an obstacle to my own goals. The education system is very different from other Asian countries. Hmm. Yeah, I think like most Asian countries are mainly just they mainly just have a big test at the end of high school, right? That kind of decides the rest of your life. And some people like it, some people don't. But after teaching in Asia for so long, and I mean, I don't teach to that system, right? Like I don't teach the crazy university entrance. Yeah, see, that's the most reaction I get from. Yeah, I hate it. Yeah, that's the reaction I get from a lot. But like after teaching here for so long, I don't know if it's like by osmosis that I've been influenced. Like I used to like totally disagree with it, like the whole education system of like having this college entrance test that decides the rest of your life. Now my perspective is like, oh man, I kind of feel bad saying this even. It's like it's a necessary evil in a sense, except especially in countries with not a lot of resources. Like I guess there are smaller countries that have more resources for which that kind of system doesn't really make sense in my mind. And then there are countries that don't have that much resources where that kind of system is a necessary evil. But it being a necessary evil doesn't change the fact that there are a ton of problems with that kind of system. And there are kind of like, don't get me wrong, I went through the Western education system, right? Of like high school, writing university entrance essays and all that. And there are huge problems with that system as well. Um, but I mean, every choice has a trade-off, right? That's the first lesson of economics. It it's at the end of the day about like, are you able to make the best out of the situation you're in? Like like in the midst of all those challenges, are you able to make the best of your own situation? I think like privilege, like I am privileged. Like I'm not going to hide the fact that I am privileged. Like I was born in Hong Kong. I got to grow up in Canada. Like my parents gave me that kind of life. We all have different starting points. And instead of like being prideful about it, or like still being victimized about it, I'm more of like I almost have like this responsibility, I view, to make the best out of my circumstances because I've been blessed with so much. Your system only focuses on the study part. You were a good football player, and I'm assuming this is like football with your feet, not like American football. But my school does not support me and my team for a match which could literally change our life. Yeah, I've seen so many schools like take away sporting opportunities for students because their grades aren't like up to the school standards, and I definitely don't agree with that. I think I don't know if this is true for you, but like in my experience, the the students that I've taught and I've talked to that maybe aren't that great academically, like for them sports is like their only thing that keeps them happy and makes them feel valued, and like the whole conversation about around self-worth, and to them to say to those students that aren't that great at school that because you're not good at school we're going to take the only thing that you're actually good at away from you is like that's the only thing they have left. You know what I mean? I don't know if you're connecting with that feeling or not. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, don't worry about your English. It's I get it. I understand. It's, you've got good English. Yeah. So how are you dealing with that? Like, are you accepting it okay? Because like that's a perfect example of things that happen to you. Like you like you'd like to think that you can still have some kind of accountability over that, but you really don't, right? Like it happened to you. The only thing you can be accountable to is your reaction to that situation. Yeah. And I hope you're making the best out of it, right? Like it's too late to change the past. So I hope you're making the best out of it. Yeah, man. And like I think or woman, and again I have no idea. but but like that's the thing is like I think you're on the right track. Like it's good because so many people just let the past remain as something that negatively affects their present. And because it negatively affects their present, it's going to negatively affect their future as well. And so I think like the sooner you let those things go, like you don't forget about that experience, right? Obviously you don't, because it was an intense experience. But you can admit and you can recognize and acknowledge that that is an experience in the past that you don't have to let it have influence over you at all. Yeah, and that's how I've dealt with a lot of negative things in my life. It's that realizing that at the end of the day, it doesn't actually really matter that much. Yeah, like breaking up with that girl, failing that test has no eternal consequence on the rest of my life. Yeah, I mean, I never regret about my past. That's the best part of me. Like, yeah, I mean, that's certainly one of the guiding principles of my life as well as the life that minimizes regret. Nothing wrong with that. It's good. I teach business and economics at a high school level. I actually teach. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I actually teach something called the A level curriculum. It's a British curriculum, um, mainly taught at international schools for high school students that want to study abroad. So economics and I just teach economics now, but I also used to teach business. Okay, that's interesting. How how is that physics teacher bad? Like, what is the what characterizes bad teaching? I'm curious now. You've you've gotten me curious. What characterizes bad teaching in your mind? Because like I have a perception of what bad teaching looks like in my mind. I don't know if it's the same perception in your mind. Yeah, the tone matters so much. But like that's the first lesson of teaching. It's like when I first started teaching, I this is a funny story. I I remember in high school when I was taking business class, and my business teacher gave us a lesson on communication, and he said, if you want to do a good job and you want to convince other people and you want to communicate to other people, especially if you're communicating to people that don't know that much, he said, as long as you sound convicted and passionate, people will believe you and they will pay attention. And that's been true throughout my whole life. And and some people like use that for like nefarious purposes, like for like to do bad things. I obviously don't want to do anything bad. I just use it to teach a good lesson. But like the tone matters. Like how you say something matters like more than what you actually say. Because if you say it in the wrong way, people don't listen, which I'm sure you have experience with. Yeah, like and like that's the thing too. Like teaching, like you write that like he knows his stuff, right? Like he knows his stuff. But like the skill of knowing is different from the skill of teaching. Like that's two like those are two different things. And so often I see schools hire people that are experts in their subject area. Like they have PhDs, but they cannot communicate anything. Like they are in and especially with people that have PhDs, they are in their own world of advanced knowledge that you don't even understand what they are saying a lot of the time. Like that's just reality. I mean, well, thank you for that, for being happy. If I were your physics teacher, I tell you with confidence that I have never taken physics in my whole life, and which I do kind of regret because my dad's an engineer, but somehow I decided to get a accounting and finance degree. And like thinking back, I probably should have studied physics. And the only reason why I didn't study physics was because I had a friend at that time that was in grade 10 taking a grade 11 physics class. And I was like, hey, how's physics class? And she was like, it's so hard. Don't ever take it. That's why I decided not to take it. And that's like the worst reason to not. I could have been an engineer, right? Like that's the worst reason. It's like to listen to one person's advice, one person's biased advice, because you know, like she's grade 10. Obviously, she's not as smart as the grade 11s taking physics, and so of course it's difficult. And back then, I didn't even know that anything worthwhile is difficult. So, lesson learned. Should have taken physics. Would have really helped. If I had taken physics, because in university I randomly decided to take a class in matrix math and vectors math. Don't ask me why. There was a period in my university time when I mistakenly thought that I could be good at math because I had a finance degree. Oh, how wrong I was. So much regret. And it didn't help that the teacher of that matrix math class is exactly like the physics teacher that you've been describing. That did not help at all. So believe me when I know exactly how you feel of having a bad teacher. I know what that feels like. And I strive not to be that. That's why I learned how to communicate, how to ask questions, how to have different tones. But like teaching is such a specific skill too, right? So I mean, don't blame the guy. Don't blame the guy. If anything, your physics teacher is training your skill in self-study, which is super important in post-secondary education. Like if you go to university, or even if you don't go to university, once you're out of school, most people don't learn anything after they graduate high school. And actually, a lot of people don't even learn anything while they're in high school, and so after they graduate, they learn even less, right? And like, it's not because they don't want to learn, but it's because they've had such a bad experience with schooling and education, and school never really taught them how to learn independently by themselves, because it's all about deadlines and assignments and homework, and the teacher is basically just there to make you do stuff, right? And then once you remove that external actor that's making you do the stuff, you don't do anything. Like that's the problem. That's why most people get stuck after they graduate school. It's because they haven't developed the skill of learning on their own. And learning isn't, obviously it's not like learning for a test or anything like that. It's learning that will eventually translate into behavior that will give you the positive feedback that you want in your life. I also think the same. I think I am good at maths, and when X and Y stuff is the very beginning, my young friend. Wait till you get to like multivariable calculus and you're like proofs and like Euclidean. Like if you ever get there, like anybody that gets there, mad respect, because I see some of my students study that kind of stuff, and I'm like, respect, mad respect. Like I tell my 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, I'm never gonna be as good as you at math. I respect you. Yeah, yeah. See, like so in one sense, see, like that's what I would make out of this situation that you're in right now. It's like in one sense, you can understand that, yeah, he or she is a bad teacher, da 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 da. But in another sense, you can take advantage of that situation to just learn in your own way, right? Like find your own way of learning that matters to you, and I think that's probably more important than that person being a good teacher. You know, is you finding your own way of doing things. Because that's what life is about. It's just finding your own way of getting to goals that you actually want to get to. By the way, if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do click that button. I don't know where it is. This is my first live stream, but click the button, subscribe. Maybe in the future we'll have more conversations and different conversations, because as we grow together, we'll get to solve different problems in our lives, and it'd be an honor and privilege to come alongside anyone and tackle the human experience together. Editing a video. Whenever I'm looking this way, I'm actually like doing actual work and editing a video. Don't mind me. I'll check periodically for new messages. Have I ever faced a student like you? Well, I don't. I don't feel like I'm informed enough to answer that question. Like, I haven't met you in person, so I don't really know that much about you. But like, what I do know about you, have I faced a student that likes sports? Yes. Have I? I think I just need more context in order to better answer your question. But like, I think a better thing to talk about is the intention behind you asking that question. Why do you ask? I think, hmm, all I can speak to, I think, is like I've met a diverse amount of students. Like I've worked at schools where academics totally was not the focus. I've worked at schools where we have DJ parties. Like we would have teachers that be really good DJs, and the teachers and the students would get together like once a month, 6 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at school, and it would be like a DJ party. Like it would be like it was basically like the club without all the, like, all the inappropriate stuff, all the drinking. Like none of that happened. So I guess it wasn't really like the club, but like everything else was there. Like people were dancing, and like some of the kids were really good dancers, and so like I was at that kind of school, DJ party schools, where the focus was not academics. It was just like social development. And I've also been at schools where it's like 20% of the students I teach are depressed, but they're geniuses. You know what I mean? Like they're like the top 1% of students in the world, but they're under so much pressure to get into that university, to achieve. And some of them, not all of them are like super stressed out about it. Most of them are. Um, so I and some of them do get into like great schools like Cambridge University, right? So I've been at like both sides of the education system. And I guess there are benefits to either one, right? In terms of like, I don't even know if I'm answering your question actually. I'm just like talking about the students I've faced and I've taught in the past. Some students have been very memorable, some not as much. Usually the more memorable students are the ones that talk to you about like their own lives and their own struggles, and you're able to help them solve problems outside of school, that you're equipped to solve. Obviously, I'm obviously not a psychology counselor, and I'm not a psychiatrist. So I can't I'm not licensed to do any of that. And so anytime like the problem needs escalation, I do need to escalate it. But a lot of time it's just like chatting about life, and they just want to kind of get, like, students just want to get my perspective on living life and like values and beliefs. And because like 16, 17, that's the age when we're building beliefs and ideologies and values that will affect you and stay with you for the rest of your life, right? So many students just don't have the values and beliefs that are working for them. And because I've learned in my experience dealing with students that there are a lot more dysfunctional families than there are happy families, and that's an unfortunate reality that we have to wrestle with in our lives. And so much of, like, if anybody comes from like a dysfunctional family, and you might not even know it a lot of the time, but if like you want to truly make a change for yourself. Hey Jan, I'm actually just I'm chatting with a guy here, or a gal, actually don't really know, just about like life direction. But I'm actually editing a video very slowly because I've been having such great conversations with just the people that are here about life and all that. And we were just talking about the amount of programming that we need to undo a lot of the time, because so many beliefs are ingrained within us that actually work against our well-being, in a sense. And that sounds really abstract, so let me give you a solid example. because I'm a teacher. I love giving examples. So like from 0 to 18, you're in this education system that trains you to operate based on extrinsic rewards, like a good grade and deadlines, and you're operating based on what other people tell you to do, and that prepares you for a workplace where you get rewarded extrinsically in the form of a paycheck, money every 2 weeks or every month, in response to people telling you what to do, right? Like, so people tell you to do something, you do it, and you get money in exchange. And we're conditioned in the schooling system to do that. And 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 that is a conditioning that has benefits and it has costs, right? The benefit is we get things done, right? Like when people tell us to do something, we get things done, and it's good and we get rewarded for that. The cost is that when we're in an environment where there's no one telling us what to do anymore, we're kind of lost. And we kind of go back to our lizard brains and we ask ourselves, and it's not our fault, it's just the way we're wired. And we ask ourselves, like, what is the thing that maximizes gratification right now? And we do that thing. Right. And so that's why in like our student era, like when I was a student, I used to be a student as well, I would do the work and I would get good grades, but the moment I didn't have homework, I would be on the internet. I would be playing video games. I would be going out, and I'm thankful I didn't get into like the whole partying and alcohol and drugs scene in university. Like I'm thankful I skipped all of that, but I could have, right? And if I did, I probably, like, knowing my own lack of control, like bad things would have happened. But it's because we didn't build the muscle of us being able to do what we tell ourselves to do. And like that takes practice as well, right? So it takes practice to do what others tell you to do. Like when we're a kid, we do what our parents tell you to do. Once we go to school, we do what teachers tell us to do. And once we graduate school, we do what our bosses and managers tell us to do. And so we never have the opportunity of practicing doing what we tell ourselves to do. And so as a result, we're horrible managers, right, of ourselves. And we're also horrible employees of ourselves, if you know what I mean. So like if you look at entrepreneurs and athletes, like people that have achieved massive amounts of success are really good at doing what they tell themselves to do, and they gain confidence that way. And it's a skill. So that was a really long-winded way of giving you an example of negative programming that, in this situation, schools give students. And it's not just school though, right? Like there's the environment, there are parents, friends, like all of that, all those environmental factors shape who we are in one way, shape, or form. Yeah, that's it. And so like this live stream was just me. I didn't think anybody was gonna watch this live stream, so I'm literally just editing a video. But then, people started coming on and started asking questions, having conversation, and honestly, I'd rather much have a conversation with all of you, because it's a meaningful experience. So yeah. Exactly. That's it, right? Like, and I imagine this probably popped up on your shorts feed, right? Like as you're scrolling on YouTube shorts, and it's so easy to just get into this like habit of scrolling and then dopamine and then scrolling and then dopamine, scrolling, dopamine. It's so important sometimes to just like stop and have a real conversation. You know what I mean? You once talked to a millionaire of your country, and was surprised when, tell me more. What do you mean? What was the millionaire struggling with? Give you some time to type. I'm just working. Feel free to ask a question. We can chat, have a conversation. I've lived long enough to have an opinion on most things. And you get to be the judge of whether that opinion is something you agree with or disagree with. So just ask a question. If you're not going to ask a question, then I'm just going to get to work. I'm working right now. Struggling with his poor background, his family was not well enough to hold a family of 3, and then he started doing food business. Yeah. See, like, that's something that I think a lot of us need to actually understand is most millionaires are self-made. It is sad that most people don't have time for a deep conversation. Most people don't even know how to have a deep conversation. Like most people are stuck at like, how are you? I'm fine, and they move on with their lives, right? But back to what Iconic was saying, like 88% of millionaires are self-made. That's a statistic. I was doing research for a video and I had to look up the information. 88% of millionaires are self-made. My dad is a self-made millionaire, and he started like working in communist China at a factory, getting paid like 30, okay, like in American dollars, $5 a month, right? Like he went from that and like the Cultural Revolution and like all of that. He went from that to being able to make $1 million, right? Like that says so much, right? Like and here we are sitting like here we are thinking that millionaires are millionaires because they inherited it, and some of them do. Don't get me wrong, but if our mindset is like the only way to become rich is by sheer chance, then there's absolutely no way that we'll do any of the work that is required for us to get rich, right? That's just the matter of fact. Because we give up the responsibility, right? We externalize the process of getting rich to something that we cannot control, and therefore, if we believe we cannot control it, we will not. Yeah. But like that's the conversation we need to be having. Yeah, see you, Iconic. Yeah, see you, man. I'm glad you appreciate, and I appreciate you for just taking the time. You know, really, good on you. Thank you. Yeah, and like live streams are just such good places to have deep conversations. It's just I feel like it's just the right amount of intimacy. You know what I mean? It's like you remain anonymous. I kind of don't, but like you do. So that's great, right? And and so it's just the right amount of like anonymity and intimacy for us to like talk about important topics that we usually wouldn't talk about. See you, Iconic. If you're still here, I never know. Yeah. But like if you're here and you stopped scrolling, that's a sign, right? Like it's not like you actually want to watch YouTube shorts. I mean, it's like YouTube's really good at giving you dopamine hits, right? That's why you keep scrolling. But let's have like a worthwhile, meaningful time by actually talking about stuff. Like let's have a conversation. Right? Like I think that's valuable. Don't you? Like what are you working on in your life right now? Like where are you at? Like what are you struggling with? Are you having the best time of your life? Like it's something worth celebrating in your life. Share that. Right? Like that's why we're here, right? To share in this human experience, the ups and the downs, right? Like if you're having a good time, let's find people to celebrate that, right? Like if you're having a not so good time, well then there are people that can comfort you in your afflictions. Right? So like I mean there are so many live streams of oh man, don't get me started. Of like there are so many live streams where like the streamers just they think it's a video, right? And so they're like doing their thing. But like that's just a video, you know what I mean? I think we need to have conversations. Like we need connection. Like it's actually beneficial. Right? Like especially when the alternatives we have in real life don't necessarily support us. And so type it in the chat. Right? Like ask a question. Could be anything. If I don't know anything about it, I'll say I don't know anything about it, and that's okay. Right? Or just work on something, right? Like I'm working on this. I'm editing a video. So I'll check back in a few moments to see if somebody posted a message. I've been thinking once about creating an app that could be like a social platform that focuses more on the deep conversations. And I think it would be a cool idea, but hard to make for sure. I agree. What's stopping you? Right? Like, it's a big job. I think, like, a startup of that size and scale would require so many different skill sets and hires. So you would need so much starting capital. Like, those are the reasons not to start. But maybe a better way to approach that problem would be to create a different product that's addressing the same problem but easier to create, right? So like what about some sort of community, right? Like on the existing platforms where the attention is at, right? Because if you build an app, you have to market the app, you have to test the app, you have to code the app, right? But if you take advantage of existing code and create content on platforms where attention already exists, then you're using leverage from other people, right? So exactly, you have to find the right audience, right? And so think about it. Like, let's pretend you're like, Ruby on Rails, and like you're coding and you're creating this app for the App Store. How are you going to market it? Where are you going to market it? Right? And so the only place you can market is on places where attention is gathered at, right? And so right now attention is gathered on several social media platforms that you can name off the top of your mind, right? Like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, so on and so forth. And so why not build the audience first, right? Build the audience first, talk to the audience about their problems, and then build something to help them, right? Like, why not do that? I think that's a more approachable way to building a business that is accessible because of the social media platforms we have today. Like this wasn't possible 20 years ago, right? Like, marketing is free today. Marketing was not free 20 years ago. And so I think, yeah, if you think it's a good approach, all it takes is pressing record. Like, that's literally like all it takes to start. And I think anybody with a phone can start. You might not be good at it in the beginning, but who is at the beginning? Right? Like this, yes, this is my very first live stream, but I've taught at schools for 8 years, right? And so like it makes sense that I'm able to speak relatively okay, right? I'm not even gonna claim that I'm a good speaker, right? But like it makes sense. Like that's a skill that needs building. And so what are the skills? So like you have two questions. You have two questions you want to answer. You've got a problem that you know exists, right? Like how do you build deep connection with people? Right? Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Lots of practice, right? So, but anyways, you've got two problems you want to solve, two questions you want to ask. And actually one problem you want to solve, deep connection with people, but two questions you've got to ask, right? If you're starting from nothing, how do you leverage existing platforms and the attention on existing platforms to build in a sustainable way, to bootstrap, right? And then question number two, right? And then question number two is, how do you iterate on a product, right? Like how do you build the community of people, and then how do you create an environment for yourself where you're able to iterate on the solution? That's all. The creator-based community kind of, yeah, that's one way, right? But you want to be careful of creator-based communities. Like you want to be careful of Facebook groups, because a lot of the time that's the blind leading the blind. You know what I mean? Like if like there is value in a Facebook group or like a school community from a small group accountability perspective. But that value diminishes if the intent of you building that community is so that the people in that group can lead each other to a destination that they are all incapable of reaching. Right? Like you have to think about the A to B, right? Like if I put a bunch of beginners in a group, how do they go from A to B? They're all beginners. They don't have a guide. Right? And so you want to be cognizant of the intention behind why you're creating community, which is something I've had to think about as a teacher. And so like maybe something for you to do right now is like, what do you mean by deep conversations? Like, what is a deep conversation? How do you have deep conversations? Why don't people have deep conversations? Like, you probably have your own experiences that you can share, but like, is there data? Is there science? Right? Yeah. Back to work for now. Most people don't know how to have deep conversations. You know, why? For me, a deep conversation is something that brings value, a connection of minds. I think, hmm, I think a conversation, by its definition, requires a connection of minds. Because if your minds aren't connected, like if I'm not understanding what you're saying and you're not understanding what I'm saying, then there's no conversation going on. It's just preaching and pontification that isn't really going anywhere. You're like, I want you to think about like, why don't people have deep conversations? And like, I think like I have my own answers to this question around like insecurities and other people's judgments. I guess those are the main reasons that most people would say. I'm curious on what you'd think about as the answer to this question. But like, there's the difference between most people don't know like, there's a difference between how most people don't know how to have a conversation that is deep. There's a difference between that and why most people choose not to have deep conversations, for sure. And hey, if you're here, if you're still here, do subscribe to the channel if you want to have more deep conversations. It's my first live stream, so like, this is the worst of me. Right? Like, it's my first live stream. It's the worst live stream that you're ever going to see. Yeah. Um and I think most people don't know how to have a deep conversation because they're actually not that logical in their way of thinking. They don't have good reasoning in the progression of their thoughts, and their articulation oftentimes does not catch up to their thinking, in a sense. It's fine. Yeah, writing English sometimes it's not the easiest language to master. You know, people that are actually good at having deep conversations, they make sense. They're logical. They speak empathetically. They are really good at asking important questions. They're really comfortable to share around. And like, I have my own conception of the characteristics of someone that is good at having deep conversations. But most people don't. Right? Exactly, they're curious. Like, I'm super curious about your background, your experiences. Like I'm like, what is motivating you to create a platform that solves people's problems of not being able to not being able to have deep conversations? Like, do you come from a context where you feel like you're unable to have deep conversations with people? You're unable to talk about the important questions in life. You're unable to share intimately your vulnerabilities with someone. Maybe you don't have someone to trust, right? Like, what about your context informs the problem that you want to solve is a very important thing to think about when you think about the problems that you want to solve in your life that matter to you. Yeah. Like, how serious are you about building this thing? Yeah, take your time. Let me work in the meantime. And if anybody else on the stream wants to like just jump into the chat, or I mean, it's fine if you're a silent observer, but you're here anyways. Might as well say hi and be like, "What's up?" Hey, if you're just paying attention to me right now and you've stopped scrolling because that's the title of this video, I'm just I'm just working, having a conversation while working. And so if you want to chat about anything, maybe you're struggling with something in your life, I'm trying to document the journey of doing that. Type in the chat and I will check periodically. This is largely due to the fact that since childhood I am a person who wants to understand the world to a large extent. I love to learn, find out new things, and experiment, skills, knowledge, etc. But people don't understand things I want to talk about. It does not change the fact that I could explain it to them, but most people do not want to know, and it's kind of out of their comfort zone. So I thought creating a platform like this or some kind of less superficial dating app could help somehow for people like me. Yeah, 100%. I think I think you're solving a very specific problem, right? Like you're solving, like, especially when you mention the dating app, you're solving a problem from a very specific angle, right? You're solving the problem of deep human connection, possibly from a dating angle, right? And all you need to do is create content that resonate with the people that you want to build something for. And that should not be that difficult. But it does take a lot of self-awareness because you need to understand, because you're building for people like you. So what problems do people like you have? Right? Like that's the question. Like what obstacles prevent you from having deep conversations? Right? And how do you overcome those obstacles? And so what you are building is you're building a group of people with common problems, right? And so once you've gathered this group of people together and they all want to solve the same problem, that's when the magic happens, right? Like there's so much value in what you're trying to build. Like you're trying to share something positive, right? So like that in itself should be a worthy cause, right? It shouldn't be about the money, though it's great to have money as well, right? But like at the same time though, I can imagine an obstacle being like, how do you even decide like deep conversations, like what deep conversations are, right? Like do you get people to share their deep dark secrets in the first moments of their interaction, right? Like that wouldn't work out very well, right? But like creating something, a framework that allows us to skip the superficial stuff, but not get too personal right at the beginning, because that's also a little bit kind of off-putting. That would be something that you need to think about, right? Like what's the right amount of intimacy in the beginning when people are just starting to have those conversations. I think we desire genuine, authentic human connection. Like that is without a doubt true. And really, really bad things happen when people don't grow up with genuine, authentic, caring human connections. Like we see the negative consequences in the form of sociopathy, psychopathy, right? Emotional numbness. Like there are just so many problems that come up when we're unable to have genuine, deep connections with people. And maybe talking about those problems and then doing so over an extended period of time, not even really for the sake of building an audience or for the sake of finding a group of people that care, but for the sake of yourself, right? Like as you are working through these problems yourself, what are the epiphanies? What are the new perspectives you're trying out and you're learning? How are you making new connections and what's that doing for you? Right? Like just documenting that process, I think would be worthwhile. Like I don't know about your perspective, but imagine one day you do succeed. And then you having the video or the blog or the podcast from day one, and you being able to be like, hey, everyone that is dealing with this problem right now, that is where I started. And if that is where I started and this is where I am, then you can do the same, right? Like that's a really powerful message. Yeah. Build something around that. Food for thought. Don't have to listen to me. You don't. You thought about documenting your journey, calling it 1,080 days journey to a success podcast or something? Yeah. Start. Start with day one. It's like that's the thing. I used to have like a bucket list of like 100 things I want to do before I die. And then 8 years ago, 8 years ago, I went to China, and my first vacation, I traveled around China, and I went to a little town called Wenchuan in China. Probably never heard of it, and it was after I had gone through like 13 different cities, maybe not 13, maybe like 8 to 10 different cities in China. I had such a great time, but I ended up in this little town called Wenchuan, and there was something special about that town, and not in a good way, in a very sad way, actually. And in that town, I was talking to the tour guide, and the tour guide took me to this school, and the school was 4 stories tall. So imagine like looking at this school, it's 4 stories tall, and it's the only building that was still standing in the area, and it was lopsided, and I could see part of the first floor in the ground, and I was like, "Whoa, what happened?" And Wenchuan turned out to be the city where it was the ground zero of the 2008 Sichuan earthquake in China, where 69,000 people lost their lives. And that school was the only building that was still standing in the area because it was a new building that was earthquake proof at the time. But get this, the school was not 4 stories tall, the school was 5 stories tall. 4 stories remained above ground. There was one whole story that I couldn't even see underground, and there are still people down there. And like as a teacher, that hit me really hard. Just like the thought of my students having to go through that and not making it up. Like that hit me in like so in such a profound way, because I had just spent 4 weeks having the time of my life, having fun, eating, buying things, drinking, right? Like going out with friends. And then I, for some reason, ended this trip with such a solemn moment and reminder that one day our time on this earth will end. And we actually might not have control over when that happens. Right? Like that gave me such a perspective. And like since that moment, I've been trying to like start side hustles and like trying to just create something that will allow me to give the people I love the life they deserve, that I believe they deserve, and I believe they deserve better than what they have right now. And it's not like I haven't failed, right? Like I have gone from one failure to the next failure, but one thing that has been consistent throughout this narrative is I've never given up. I've always gotten back up from my failures because I know that one day I might succeed. And even if I don't succeed, I know that I will not regret anything from trying. And I keep trying because I know that my time on this earth might run out at any time. Like a freak accident might happen. Right? Like I'm planning to die at 90, but I never know. And like you're thinking about your like other projects, right? I like my advice is just like instead of having 100 things on your bucket list that you want to do, just look at number 1 and do that. And then do that, attack that until you can't attack it anymore. And then do number 2. And don't look at all 100. Just look at number 1, do it. And then look at number 2, do it. Right? And then you'll find through that through that process you learn so much. Success is based upon failure, right? Like that goes to the conversation of the finite game and the infinite game, right? Like because I teach economics, and so as an economics teacher, I teach the concept of game theory. And in game theory, we differentiate between finite games and infinite games. And life is actually a lot of the time an infinite game, but most of us think it's a finite game. And so as a result, we lose. We don't win because we're playing the wrong game. And so let me give you an example. A finite game is a game with defined rules, winners and losers, and a clear end in mind. And so like think something like I want to marry rich, like I want to get married to a rich, beautiful woman. Like that's a finite game, right? Like you have your own definition of what a rich, beautiful woman or husband or man is, right? And then once you achieve that, you win the game, right? But there's a problem, right? There's a problem with playing that game because one, you might not win. So what happens if you lose? And then two, let's pretend you do win. What then? Because marriage is not the end. Marriage is the beginning to a lifelong relationship. And so the goal of getting into healthy relationships, building a business, going to the gym is not to become healthy. It's not to become an entrepreneur and build a great business. Is not to get married to a very good person. The goal is to stay married, stay healthy, and stay in business, right? That's the infinite game. And so if you play the infinite game, your decisions today will change. And so that's the problem with goals. So there are two types of goals that we set in our lives, and one type of goal gives us anxiety. The other type of goal actually allows us to achieve. And so the type of goal that gives us anxiety is achievement goals. Like we're setting the goal based on results. We cannot control the results, right? If your goal is to get married by 27 or 28 or 35 or whatever age, you cannot control that, right? Either nothing happens and you don't meet your goal, or you somehow end up settling for less, and we both like should know that that doesn't end up well in most situations, right? And so the goals that we should set, like if you want to like have a healthy relationship, or a healthy business, like the goal you set should not be on the results. It should be based on the actions that you take. It should be based on the inputs, right? So like instead of trying to marry the best person, right? Like how do you become the best person that will attract the kind of person you actually want to be with, right? Because you can control who you are. You can't control who other people are. So why not just control who you are and become the person that will be able to find or meet the kind of person that you want to end up marrying, right? Like that's from a relationship perspective, right? From an achievement perspective, instead of setting achievement based goals, then maybe it's a better idea to just set input goals, right? Like what are the behaviors and actions that will get us to the result that we want? And then all we have to do is do that and be directionally correct. So you're talking about, yeah, identity-based habits and outcome-based habits. So it depends on the identity that you want for yourself, right? I think there's a saying that you have not achieved the goals that you want to achieve because right now you are not the person that can achieve those things. Like your identity is not there yet, right? And so sometimes you just got to put on the cape of someone that can have good conversations, someone that can connect with people, someone that is worthy of having a meaningful spouse in their life, right? And then you do the things that would characterize someone that is like that. Exactly. It doesn't mean that you can't achieve them, right? I think the important thing is like to not let failure cripple you, because that's what happened with me. Is like I let failure cripple me for such a long time that I didn't get back up, right? Eventually I did, right? Like from failure to failure, I did get back up, but I had long periods of pauses. Like if I had realized sooner that failures don't define who I am, like my identity does not have to be anchored on the failures that I attain, and that I chose to anchor my identity on that. Like if I had realized that sooner, I probably would have achieved greater things by now. Like if I can anchor my perception of my own success based on the actions that I take, I think that would get me like to my goals faster, achievement goals. Sometimes you need a different mindset to solve a problem than the one created them. Yeah, 100%, right? Like you'll notice, like if you've if you keep like coming across the same problems in your life, or like the same obstacles in your life, there's probably like it's probably because of one problem you consistently fail to solve, right? Like for me, it was the problem of self-discipline. It was the problem of external judgment, right? And like I needed to find ways to solve that for me. And now, like, if anyone's curious, I can share, but if no one asks, I'm not gonna share, right? But yeah, like you need to figure out what's causing the problems, what's causing the obstacles, right? And sometimes it's like a programming from your past, sometimes it's like habits, right? Like, but it's something, like something's there, and then you need to figure out like what's the minimum viable behavior that will make you directionally correct to solving the problems, and then do that, right? And it doesn't even matter if it makes no significant difference to your life, because it will make a significant difference to your psychology, and those changes compound over time. And it's also good to clearly decide what the problem is. Yeah, I mean, the first step to fixing any problem is to acknowledge that you have one, right? Like if you've noticed that, like if you've noticed like addiction counseling a lot of the time, the first step is to get over the denial that you have a problem, right? And then a lot of people don't recognize they actually have problems, and so as a result, they are feeling the consequences of their addiction, their problems. But because they don't realize it's their problem, they end up blaming it on external environment, external causes. And that really sucks, because if we repeat that narrative in our lives, we become more powerless to solve that problem, because we're externalizing. We're giving power to the external instead of internalizing it. So it's very not empowering. It's disempowering. You can say about how you solve the problem with external judgments because it sounded interesting. What do you mean by that? I'm curious. I'm not sure I understand what you're trying to say. External judgments. What do you mean by external judgments? How you solve the problem. What do you mean? Yeah. Oh yeah. Caring too much about what other people say. Like, okay, yeah, that is a huge problem that a lot of people deal with, is caring too much about what other people say. So I want to preface that with I do not how do I put it in a way that makes sense? Like there are people in my life that, like, their opinion matters. For example, my wife's opinion matters, as it should, right? But the problem with a lot of people is they care about the opinions of people that don't ultimately matter in their lives, that ultimately are not like people that have the best intentions, right? Like, so if you think about people that put you down, they're not, like, if they put you down, they're not people that have best intentions for you. Wouldn't you agree? Right? And like putting you down is different from being honest and candid, right? Like putting you down is like people that are judging you for like personal things, like people that are attacking you personally. And if anything, that says more about their own emotional and personal state than it does about me. Right? Like the first thing you have to understand is most people don't have context, right? Because you're living a public life, you're living a private life, and you're living a secret life, right? And the public life is what others see, right? And so for you right now, like if you, Jan, were to judge me, I should not, and I'm sorry if this sounds offensive, I should not be affected by that because you are judging my public life. You do not know my private life. My wife knows my private life. My mom and dad know my private life, right? And so their opinions will have some kind of effect on me, right? But even my parents don't know my secret life. Like there's a part of me that only I know, right? And so ultimately, I am the only one that has enough context to give myself advice, assuming that I am not blinded by subjectivity and my own biases, right? And so the first step is to realize that other people don't actually have context on your life, and so their opinion isn't meritocratic. Like their opinion isn't the best opinion because they don't have context on you living life. Right? And so why should you listen to them? Right? Like unless like the only situation that I could imagine me listening to someone that only has access to my public life is if they're coaching me on a very specific skill. Right? Like if I've hired a personal trainer and they're teaching me how to lift, then I should listen to them. Then I should care about their opinion because they're teaching me a specific skill, right? But if that personal trainer all of a sudden tells me I'm a horrible person, then I know for 100% that that opinion isn't valid because they haven't seen all of me. Nor should they, right? And but like it works both ways, right? It works both. I want to understand. I want you to understand that it works both ways. In the same way, you don't have 100% context in their lives, right? Maybe they're having a shitty day. Excuse my French. Maybe they're having a really bad day, right? And that's why they're putting their negativity on you, right? Like maybe that other person just had an argument with a husband that cheated on them, right? And they're projecting their anger onto you. I don't know that, right? Maybe that's their situation, and if that's their situation, then I'm gonna be empathetic, and because I don't know that, I am empathetic, right? To other people's situations because I don't know them, right? And so so like that's how it's two ways. So because they don't understand me, because they don't have my context, I don't let their opinions affect me. Because I don't have their context, I forgive them for saying mean things. Right? Like that's how I live, right? And then to the people that know my private life that have authority in a specific area, I listen to them. I take their opinion into account. And I understand that their opinion is made in my best intentions, right? Because the people that I keep close to me and the people that you should keep close to you have your best intentions, right? Their intentions are like for a better future for you, right? And so you shouldn't be offended, right? Like if somebody gives you advice and they are looking out for you, even if it is bad advice, even if it is constructive criticism, you shouldn't, right? Like you shouldn't feel bad about it. You shouldn't be offended by it because they just want the best for you, right? You can choose not to take their advice, right? Like that's something you can do. Like if you genuinely think that they care for you, they want the best for you, but they're giving you bad advice, you don't take it, right? You say thank you. And then you 180 degrees, you turn in the other direction. And that's okay because you're living your life. Right? Yeah. You're living your life. What else is there to say? The worst thing is how some people see their value only in what some people say about them. A lot of time that's a consequence of a lack of self-esteem and self-concept. Like, we don't know ourselves. And so our self-worth is dependent on other people's approval. Like, I get what you mean. That's an unfortunate reality. And that's a sign of like an incomplete being. Right? Like if you're living from a state of lack, right? I think like if that's you or like other people, I think the first step is like you need to accept yourself, right? Like those people need to objectively look at their own lives and be thankful that they're alive. I think just having this opportunity to become better is something to be grateful for. Like, you are enough as you are. Like, again, we're going back to the conversation where improvement needs to be anchored in reality. Like, I think there are like two sides to what you just said. I think the idea that people see their value only in what some people say about them is two-sided. I think from on the one hand, I think that's extremely bad, right? Like to have your own to externalize the creation of your self-worth to external actors. That's really bad. But on the other hand, there's another perspective. You get to define the value that you have in this world by the value you bring to the marketplace, to those around you, how much you help other people. But the difference is you define that value, right? Like, instead of other people being like, you are worthless. No, you are saying, I am worth a lot because here's what I've done for the marketplace, for other people, so on and so forth. So there are two sides. As a child, you were very empathetic, and even though you were better than others at many things, you consider yourself inferior or guilty of it, as others envied you. There are ways where I think we adjust to the circumstances that we are in, right? And so, like, empathy is a power, no doubt about that, right? But what if you were around a group of people that didn't envy you, but appreciated you for your empathy? Like, thank you for being able to understand where I'm at. Thank you for understanding my problems. Thank you for being there to help me. Right? Like, what if you were, like, imagine who you would be if you were around that group of people growing up. You had empathy, you were good at many things, and the people around you didn't envy you, they appreciated you, they supported you, they were thankful. Who would you be? How would you be different? How would you be empowered? What habits would you have? What would you believe? Okay. So yes, that's the difference. A lot of things would have changed if I understood that earlier. There are people who want good things for you and support. Exactly. Right? The benefit of the human mind is we can imagine, right? Like you can just imagine how you would be different, right? And I'm 100% certain that if you imagine you have a picture of how you would be different, the habits, the mindset, the beliefs, the values, right? The behaviors of that different you. And the opportunity is that you can still be that person in the future. Maybe that's not who you are today, but if today you make the decision, like that's who I could have been. And guess what? Who that person is defined by their beliefs, their actions, their behaviors, their habits, what they say. You can, like, all of those things are controllable. You can choose to believe different things. You can choose to build new habits, right? You can choose to meet different groups of people, right? Now, maybe doing all those things at the same time simultaneously is difficult, but you can do it one at a time, right? A little bit at a time over a long period of time, and then 10 years later, you'd be a different person, right? Imagine who you could have been, not based on the results of the achievements of that different person, but based on the habits, the beliefs, the words they say, the people they meet, the controllable inputs that define who that person is. And because they are controllable inputs, you can start controlling them today. That's it. Right? And that's how you go from one identity to another identity. Right? That's like animals can't do that. Right? Your cat or your dog cannot imagine how to improve to be the best dog or cat they can be. They can't. Humans can do that, right? Humans can visualize the kind of person they wish to become and then work on becoming that kind of person. Start today. Like, what's one thing you could do? What's one belief you can adopt? Like, all it takes is imagine if 10 years later your life is exactly the same as it is today. Like what would be like 10 years later your life is exactly as it is today. Like how hard would that suck? Right? And that should be the motivation for you to change today, to improve today, right? And then so the next thing is like, what is the minimum viable action that you need to take today in order to be directionally correct? And you're not even giving yourself a timeline. Don't give yourself a timeline. Don't be like, oh, I want to be married in 10 years. Don't be like, I want to be a millionaire in 10 years. No, you only need to, like, because you're starting from such a beginner state, you just need to be directionally correct. You just need to show up. That's all. Right? So like, define that for yourself right now. Like, what is one thing you can change about your life starting today, right? Maybe it's like reading for 15 minutes. Heck, if you can't do 15 minutes, do 5 minutes. Heck, if you can't do 5 minutes, go search up a random YouTube video, book summary, and then write down one thing that you learned and then apply it to your own life, right? Hey, if you want to get in shape and start being healthy and you can't, like, stop going online to like fitness websites and searching up like the best workout routine, the best diet, doing all of this research and then not doing anything about it. Today, go outside and walk for 15 minutes. Like, we all know how to walk. We take a foot and right? Like, we all know how to do it, right? Because that's the actual first step that you need to take. And like the rest will come after. Like you need to just show up first, right? Show up to the gym. Go outside. That's the first step. Don't think about the perfect pull-up, right? The perfect squat, like perfect form. Yeah, take small steps, right? Because you're developing the mind, right? Because your mind determines your actions, and your actions determine your results. So the first thing you need to train is your mind, right? And then you build the habits, and then you get the results, right? If you can consistently walk outside for 15 minutes, right? Because you know you can consistently walk because we consistently walk from our computers to the fridge to get food to eat. You know you can walk. Walk outside, right? You can do that, right? That's how you start, right? Like if you want to start building a business, what's the first step? Building marketing, right? Building an audience. What's the first step to that? Posting something, right? Literally going live and waiting for people to come on. And hey, if you're watching this, this is my very first live stream, right? And Jan, I don't know if I've told you about this. This is my first live stream. I've never gone live before, right? Yes, I have read Atomic Habits, James Clear, Atomic Habits. I've also read The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And in that book, he talks about a keystone habit, right? And so what is the one habit that you could develop in your life today that would disproportionately affect the rest of your life, right? And for me, that is building a side business. For me, that is creating more options to make money, right? And so that's what I'm trying to do, yeah? But for other people, it might be fixing their health. It might be fixing their relationships with other people, right? So for you, what is that thing? And just relentlessly focus on that. And how do you be relentless? You make it easy to be relentless. You don't like do you research and like get like a 45-minute workout routine where you're like doing 5 sets of like 10 different exercises with like breaks in between. No, you go for a walk and you do it consistently. That's it. That's how you start. And then you'll find after 3 months of walking, you'll be like, maybe I can start running. And then you'll find after like another 3 months of walking / running, maybe you'll be like, maybe I can like sign up for a class or something and learn how to do this properly, right? And then next thing you know, you're like fit. Yeah, so like that's the other way. Like you can, so 2 things, right? It depends on how important money is to you, and bear with me here. Bear with me here. Here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying if you have the money, hire a personal trainer. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying sometimes once you've already lost the money, once you've already spent the money, you're like, whatever, I already spent it. It's not like I'm gonna get it back anyways. And so you end up not going. Right? Like, and so like so many people just buy gym memberships and just don't go. Right? Because the act of having a gym membership it's satisfied like a need in their mind, but it hasn't actually gotten them fit. Right? So yeah, personal trainer could work. Not your cheapest option, right? But what about the day when the personal trainer disappears, right? Like you have teachers and parents that are telling you what to do for the first 18 years of your life, and if you go to university, even more. So that's why you're so good at doing what other people tell you to do. But if you keep doing that, you can't train the skill of you being able to tell yourself what to do. Like have you ever noticed like we're very good at doing what other people tell us to do? Like we're complicit, we're compliant because we've been conditioned to do so in the schooling system. I know, I'm a teacher. But we're very bad at doing what we tell ourselves to do. We're very bad at that. And in order to get good at doing what we tell ourselves to do, because that's the skill you need to master. Because everybody is doing what other people tell them to do. But the people that really make it in life in different areas, yeah, yeah. Like the people that really make it in the different areas of their lives, they're really good at telling themselves what to do and then actually doing it. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I tend to repeat myself sometimes. I mean, can you believe it? I've been on this live stream for over 3 hours. That's crazy. Who would have thought? My phone's running out of battery. Hey, anyways, I think I'm gonna call it a day. It's been 3 hours since I live streamed. It's been a great time talking to you. And I will see you when I see you. Make sure to subscribe to the channel because that's the only way you'll get notifications. And I do want to connect with you again. I do hope that you start something meaningful for yourself. And I hope that when the next time we talk, that you've taken that first step, second step, right? No, thank you. Thank you. And I hope it was good. Hey, I hope you get better. Yeah. You too. Have a nice day.